Bună seara, dragi prieteni, și bine ați venit la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Ioana Lee Show. Sunt Ioana Lee și aici, în Washington, vorbesc astăzi cu avocata de imigrări sau emigrări, mă corectați dumneavoastră, Becki Young. Becki, thank you so much for saying hello.
Well, thank you very much
for accepting the invitation.
It is my pleasure.
I would need to tell all of you that Becki Young is famous in her field and in this area, but because I was blessed to have her friendship for about 14 years, so almost since I arrived into this country, then she was kind enough to do this interview that otherwise for all of us that would be interested in discussing about immigration or how to obtain a visa to the United States would cost a lot of money. So I'm double grateful for her for doing this as a favor to us and our TV station. Becki, tell me please, first of all, I've seen you a lot on TV lately, different conferences. Why is this happening?
Well, immigration is a big issue in the news today in the United States. We have a president who has put immigration on the front page of the news, and I've been working in this field for over 20 years, and I've never experienced a time when really literally what I do for a living was a front page story every single day, but immigration is getting a lot of attention in the current climate.
I know that you helped in your career thousands and thousands of people to come to this country legally, and not just that, but also help basically for them to establish themselves with careers, with successful jobs, while trying to navigate, with your help of course, the system, the immigration system. So I would like our conversation to go in two directions. First, let's talk about what's called simpler process, though it's not exactly simple, obtaining a visa, a tourist visa for the United States. What are the requirements these days, and if they are short from 1 month to the other, if they can always be any unexpected changes. And then the second, a little bit about, I know there are several types of visas for those that want to immigrate and live, work, become American citizens or green card holders. So if you can please address whichever you want to start with.
Sure. So starting with tourist visas or visitor visas, so there are visitors who come for business, and then there are visitors who come for pleasure. And those individuals have to show that they have a residence in their home country that they don't intend to abandon, and that they're only coming to the U.S. temporarily. So the application process at the embassy has become more challenging under the current administration. We have something called extreme vetting, which just, in short, means that they're taking a closer look at all applications. They're asking more questions. They have a new form that asks for social media handles. So they ask, if you're applying for a visa, to provide your Facebook login, your Twitter login. They'll look at your social media. If you've posted something on social media, for example, let's say that you have a boyfriend in the United States and you've been posting pictures and you're planning to come to the U.S. to visit your boyfriend, and you don't disclose that in your interview, and they find that out through social media, then that would be a problem. So there's a lot more scrutiny, a lot more vetting going on at the consular level. You probably also have heard of the travel ban. So there are a number of countries, and it's gone through a lot of variations, but there's a list of countries whose citizens cannot come to the U.S. these days at all. whether it's as a visitor or in any other status. So they're simply at this point banned from traveling to the U.S.
Can you tell us which countries are those, or it's...
To be honest with you, the list keeps changing, and so I off the top of my head, I can't even tell you the list right now, but I think there are 7 countries on the list currently.
We were, just because you mentioned for a second scrutiny, you're an American, born, raised in this country, but I know that you speak several languages because you're very obviously working in this field. You want to help people, and you are interested in other countries, cultures, because that's what you deal with day in and day out. Even though you're, again, born, raised, studied in the United States. Our affinity, the first thing that brought us together was our passion for Japan, the Japanese language, but then, France and other such countries. I have a question for you that I will ask all Americans, successful Americans, dear friends of mine, people that I respect, which there are many in this country, who are Americans, and my question is very direct. Now you choose how you answer. As you traveled a lot, you know very well that there is a slight difference in mentalities. I call it slight difference because it depends on people's hearts and what they choose to understand from each other's mentality, culture, etc. But when you hear, and I know that you do hear, foreigners, so non-Americans complaining, just like our little dog here, that Americans, and I apologize for these words, are ugly, fat, ignorant. What do you have to answer to that?
Well, I think that, there's ugliness and ignorance in every country in the world. I think that, these days that we are seeing the ugly side of this country perhaps more than we have in recent years. But I think really from having traveled and lived in many countries around the world, there's something to appreciate and something not to be proud of really in every country. And so we just have to try to focus and bring out the best in our culture.
Doesn't it anger you?
The reputation that Americans have overseas?
The misunderstood reputation, because I'm not going to enter in a political debate, but a government has never actually represented the people. We're talking, actually, I don't remember which, I have to research, which American politician from the 19th century said that a real patriot, a real American patriot, is the one who protects his country from its government, which is hilarious in a way. I mean, it's
right.
It makes you think. But I see that you're more peaceful, probably because you never, like me, you never had to fight to work hard to become an American. But obviously when I am caught in the middle of these conversations and I am bashed, which it happens sometimes in Europe for being an American, it makes me laugh, and at the same time when I hear people, oh, I can't stand Americans, I just politely ask them to stay away from me.
I mean, I think that, that living overseas, frankly, made me appreciate my own country more than I appreciated it, growing up here. But I also, I don't know that the United States reputation overseas is entirely undeserved. I think that there are definitely instances of Americans behaving badly overseas, but then again, I think that you could say that that's really true
about every country,
of any country.
And this is still huge. Population is over 300 million people.
But
So-
part of the problem is that a lot of Americans. So you're from Europe. There are a lot of countries that are in close proximity to each other, and they're not surrounded by an ocean, so you can easily travel from one country to the other. And so I think Europeans have an opportunity to experience different cultures much more easily than Americans. And I can't remember the statistic, but there's only a very small percentage of Americans that even have a passport. So
Yes.
maybe like less than 20%. So the great majority of Americans, because we have such a large country,
because the country is very large. It's like the need for, or being told, well, somebody's monolingual. Okay, even though you studied in school, which all Americans do, high school, college, a language or two, whatever you have, you don't have the chance or choice to practice, because again, this country is huge. And you don't, think of countries like Romania. Romania is the size of the state of Texas. Then somebody told me Republic of Macedonia is like Rhode Island or something. I don't know if all my facts are correct in this sense, but you can't, you just have to accept the fact that you have your own constitution, your own culture, and it just happens to differ. And if you're ignorant in the case, you'd rather not say anything. You're allowed to express your personal opinion, but probably there'll always be European elitism versus American pragmatism, good or bad. That's for nobody, actually, no specialist to decide. It's for whatever everybody wants and how they want to live their life. But I had this little parenthesis, because now we're going into people who want to emigrate. And even though apparently they dislike United States so much, they still want to emigrate. So I'm just trying to understand this paradox.
Right. Well, I mean, it is the land of opportunity, and one thing is true. I think you can make your way here more easily than in most other countries in the world. If you are determined and hardworking, you have a chance, and it's a chance that you will not get in a lot of other places. And that's one of the things that I do appreciate the most about this country, and I think that's what draws people to this country and will continue to draw people. As you said, even some people, they're coming here and they say they don't like the United States, but still they're drawn to it. And I think that's really the ability to sort of make what you will of yourself is what does make this country great.
And many don't even go back. They still complain through the immigration process. They still complain about it because it's painful. So people need to be aware. It's painful, and I understand now it's even more painful than it used to be, but it's your choice. No American has forced you to come into his country and take his jobs or do whatever. So you come, complain, and I don't know, I'm just assuming that maybe these days would be very wise to kind of not complain, because otherwise you can easily be invited or actually sent by force to the airport. So the whatever entryway you had, you can probably exit the same way. So okay, so let's talk. How can you come in here? There's so many types of visas, and what would you say are the most common, the most common, used, accepted
ways to come to the United States?
Yes, because I know you still have to have a certain visa to apply for the whole immigration. It takes years. It's a few years long process.
Well, and actually it depends. So we talked about visitor visas already, so that's one type of non-immigrant visas. So there are basically non-immigrant visas, which are sort of short-term working visas for people who want to come here for a while but not live here permanently. And then there are immigrant visas for someone, for example, who marries an American and plans to live here for the rest of their life. So I can talk a little bit about some of the non-immigrant visas. So the most common one is called the H-1B, and that's for professional workers. So let's say, for example, that you're a lawyer from Romania a doctor from France, a scientist from England, the H-1B visa would probably be the category that you would use. It's challenging because it's subject to a quota, and so we give 85,000 of these visas per year, but usually at least 3 times that many people apply.
I see.
And so right now I'm working on these visas. It's in an annual cycle because they release them once a year. And so you have to submit your application on April 1st for a job for this year. And they literally have FedEx trucks lining up. These have to be delivered to a location in Vermont or California. And there have been some years where there were so many FedEx trucks they couldn't even get in the gates because hundreds of thousands of applications are being submitted on April 1st of every year. And so...
And few are chosen. And those that do manage to obtain, so to be accepted, what is the maximum limit they stay? Because you say this is a non-immigration, so it's just you come for probably study, for internship, for cultural, medical, scientific exchange. Is there a limit, a number of years, or 1 year, or?
So that particular visa, the H-1B, you can get it for initial period of 3 years.
Okay.
Then you can extend it for another 3 years, and then actually, as I mentioned, there are non-immigrant visas and immigrant visas. So if your employer decides that they want to keep you here permanently, they can sponsor you for an immigrant visa. And once you're in that process, you can keep extending the H-1B even further. So without an immigrant sponsor, it's a total of 6 years. But if you get a sponsor for a green card, then it could really be, many, many years. And so the immigrant visa, what's interesting, so the process to get the H-1B isn't necessarily that long because it has to be filed on April 1st, so it just depends on how long it takes to put it together. But the immigrant visa process can be very, very long, and particularly for people from India and China. So if you're from Romania and you apply for an immigrant visa, it will probably take about 2 or 3 years. If you're from India, it could take 20 or 30 years.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I was once at a conference where a lawyer stood up and she said, so we should just have our Indian clients have children, because once your child turns 21, they can sponsor you, and that would be quicker. And everybody laughed, but it was true. I mean, it could really take 20 or 30 years for Indians to get a green card through our system. But the good news is for Romanians, it's probably more like 2 to 3 years.
But it's still like even for tourist visas, they used to be, like maybe 10 years visa with multiple entries, of course, for tourism. So. You leave, maximum 6 months, but nobody generally, if you stay 6 months, then why do you stay 6 months if you have a job, a house, everything else that you have to have in your country? And now I understand that it has increased because everything got stricter, the number of visas that are being rejected. And again, could be rightfully so, could be an exaggeration, I don't know exactly. But you never know. Right. As there's some, many people lie, and like you said, if they, these days, they're so strict, if they find that there's a lie or just a mistrust, maybe you're completely honest, but if they don't actually trust your intention for real, then probably they get stricter. Do you, if for instance, if your visa is being rejected once, twice, can you get interdiction? It used to be, I don't know, it was with interdiction to ever come to the States or apply or 5-year interdiction, something like that?
So just getting your visa denied wouldn't necessarily cause that. And let's say that you apply for a visitor visa and it's denied, you can actually keep applying as many times as you like, although it's not necessarily a smart choice. But there are what are called the 3 and 10-year bars. And so that actually, in my opinion, is probably one of the biggest causes of the undocumented population in the United States. So what happens is, if you come here, let's say that you come on a visitor visa because you want to visit your friend from college, and while you're here, you meet an American guy and you fall in love, and then you overstay. So if you overstay by 6 months, you can't legalize your status in the U.S., and once you leave, you can't come back for 3 years. If you overstay by 1 year, then you're going to be banned for 10 years. And so a lot of people, because a 10-year ban, that's a pretty long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so people choose just to stay here without authorization because they don't want to risk leaving and being banned for 10 years. So the law doesn't really provide any middle ground. You either stay legally or you leave and you get banned for 10 years. And so it's a difficult choice that people have to make, and I think people are. I would like to see that 10-year bar go away. I think it forces people into bad choices.
I see. I'm going to ask a dumb question. I probably ask a lot of dumb questions, but this is. So I apologize. I'm not familiar. I'm unfamiliar with the process because I had to go through it myself, and then I heard many other stories from other foreigners, communities, how they came in, what their intentions were. But if somebody comes to you, to your practice, and they say, or do they ever say, I'm here illegally, can you help me become legal from now on? Do you help them? Is it possible? I don't know. So
we do have people who come into our office who are in that situation. Personally, I focus on business clients, so the great majority of my clients are here with authorization, or they're overseas and they want to come here legally. But within my firm, we have 9 lawyers, and half of us focus on business immigration and half focus on humanitarian and non-business immigration. So particularly those colleagues have a lot of clients who may be undocumented.
But I apologize. So please define humanitarian.
For example, asylum, temporary protected status, which is a asylum-like status that we've given to people from certain countries. There's something called VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act.
I see.
So those are the types of humanitarian statuses. And actually, one...
refugees, basically, that need the help,
protection.
Need the protection.
Exactly. But sometimes I find that so just temporary protected status is a great example. So we issued temporary protected status to nationals of certain countries like Haiti if there was a natural disaster and very dangerous or poor conditions in that country. We gave their citizens a temporary right to live and work in the United States. But now the administration has ended that status, and for many countries, including El Salvador. So I think there are about 30,000 Salvadorians just in the DC area whose status is going to be ending soon.
Which means they have to
go home, and many of them have been here for 20 or 30 years. And a lot of them have children who are here. I just saw an article today, I think it was in the Washington Post, about a teenager whose mother will be losing her status this fall. And, the teenager is old enough that she can live here on her own, but that's basically what she's faced with, is remaining here in the U.S. on her own while her mother goes back to El Salvador. So there are a lot of families that are facing these very difficult decisions.
Do you think would be appropriate? I was thinking for myself and other people that we came here not fully understanding the country, we came legally, but still not fully understanding the country, how things work. And that's not, as you know very well, in any country in the world you go, you can never say, I didn't know the law, or I wasn't aware. That doesn't, it's not an excuse, you know. So, do you think the law firms like yours would benefit from diversity consultants, from people specialized in American culture, American values, American Constitution, not necessarily all the legal things, because the lawyers can provide that, but the cultural integration? I see a lot of people, and I meet every day, and because I lived here the majority of my life, I've lost my kindness and my patience when I would stay and explain people, no, it's how this country works, it's this. So when people complain and I don't like it, I just say, why don't you leave? Seriously, just go back, you know. Well, how can you say that? Well, it's either one or the other. I mean, I learned in this country that it's a choice. It's up to you to make that choice. You know, it's not, the government is not going to make it for you.
Right.
Not if you're a simple citizen, you know. Your parents, your family can't make it for you either. So that includes people understanding the fact that, yes, you do have, you know, you come here, you give birth to a child here, the child will become an American citizen, but if you're illegal, you might get deported. So would it be helpful to have been consulted, to have been told, look, the future may look very serious. You may encounter, you know, you can't just hope, you know, just pray and hope things will get better, knowing that it's actually not quite legal what you did. I'm sorry to keep on pushing for the legal side, but it's just, you know, I come from, as you know, family of lawyers.
You know what? I mean,
if they watch, you want them to know I stick with strictly with the
straight and narrow path
with the law. Yes.
So I think that there are definitely people who flout the laws of the United States, and that is most definitely a problem. There are also people who fall out of status, sometimes through no fault of their own. And I'll tell you a story, because this is one that really bothers me a lot. We had a client who was a children's cancer researcher. So he was researching cures for children's cancer. And I don't know if you remember, but when you used to come into the country, you would get a paper card called an I-94. It was a little piece of paper.
Yeah, we all got that.
Yeah, and it told you how long you could stay.
Yes.
About maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the government stopped issuing the paper I-94s. So now, if you enter the U.S., you have to actually go online to a website and retrieve your I-94. And so if you don't retrieve it, you don't actually know how long you could stay. So if you were admitted for the wrong amount of time, you wouldn't necessarily know it. And so what happened to this client, he had an H-1B visa. It was valid for 3 years. But his passport was expiring, let's say, 6 months after he entered the U.S. So the customs is only allowed to admit you until your passport validity. And so they admitted him for 6 months instead of 3 years, but they didn't issue him any piece of paper saying that. And he didn't know that he had been admitted for only 6 months until we were filing we were trying to extend his H-1B, and we found out that he had been here for more than 6 months illegally, and he was subject to a 3-year bar. And so we said to U.S. Immigration, look, this was totally unintentional. This guy did not know, you know, he didn't do this on purpose. And he's a children's cancer researcher, so please show some mercy here. They would have nothing, you know, they would hear none of it. They denied his case, and he left the country. And so we lost a children's cancer researcher over a technicality. So there's that kind of story too, which is, you know, a counterpoint. I think there are a lot of stories in between, but there are some complexities to immigration law. So even people who are trying to stay here legally sometimes don't manage to do it.
Becki, I know that our friendship should go both ways. So far, you just gave to, I asked you to, you accepted the interview. I want to ask you one more favor, and of course accept only if it is possible. I have my Romanian viewers. Maybe some are interested in immigrating, maybe they're just curious to see what's a big deal about the United States. Maybe, not maybe, I know many have families here and they want to come visit them. Is there any chance you could be reached, your company, the company that you own, can be reached? So if people have any advice, because I want to advise all of them to definitely do what I did. I hired an American immigrant lawyer, because I believed, I'm not saying that non-American would not be very successful or knowledgeable, but that's how I felt, that if it's an American, just understands better the culture, the law, and everything. Would you mind terribly if you would give an address or an email, something where people could write to you with questions?
Sure. So my law firm is called Grossman Young. So it's www.grossmanyoung.com. And on that website, you can find my biography and also how to get in touch with me. And there are lots of other really good resources too. So that would be a great place to go for people who are interested in learning more.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate this interview and hope to see you again, so we discuss any further developments. Mulțumesc frumos tuturor dacă ne-ați urmărit și dacă v-a interesat acest interviu. Cu toată sinceritatea vă recomand, dacă vă interesează orice fel de călătorie în Statele Unite, orice perioadă, indiferent ce motive aveți, să vă vizitați familia, să veniți, să vizitați, să vedeți cum este această țară și nu ați reușit până acum, vă rog frumos să vă interesați, fie pe site-ul ambasadei americane la București, sau să contactați, dacă este un lucru mai serios, să contactați un avocat de emigrări american, cum este Becki Young. O să încercăm să punem subtitluri ca să puteți vedea cum ajungeți pe site-ul firmei pe care o deține. Vă mulțumesc din suflet, sunt Ioana Lee și ne vedem data viitoare la Ioana Lee Show.